Wednesday came and went, and oh, what happened? Well, technical problems. Taped the whole show. There was audio, but that was it. So, starting over. And really, all I had to talk about was Absolute Batman. I'll get back to World's Finest, but it's, doing its crossover, or was, with Justice League and all that. So I think when that's all complete, I'll do an overall on that. Finding that more and more the case, beginning to think I should just get the trades, Anyway, DC is overtaking Marvel. Usually they'll find a way to lose that advantage, but one of the big sellers is the Absolute line, and most notably Absolute Batman. And I can, well, it's Batman, so of course Batman's the star. And the main selling point is just, it's so over the top and crazy that it's kind of fun. I don't know there's anything brilliant here or anything like that. But in its own weird way, it works. There's a lot of things in it I don't care for. I think it's a bit foolish for not all of them, but a good bit of Batman's, famous villains are his childhood friends and that type of thing, and they're still around. So I don't know that they actually become villains in the future when they all know who he is and this sort of thing. That sort of thing works when you have a character like the Joker who probably knows that Bruce Wayne's Batman. They go back and forth on that. But most of his villains would immediately use it. Maybe the Riddler would also not use it because he likes the cat and mouse game as much as the Joker for the most part. Catwoman, of course, knows it a long time ago, and of course she's in love with him, so she wouldn't reveal it. That sort of thing. But the rest of them, Penguin, he's going to turn him in as fast as he can, So, yeah, but it's a different universe, and it's the Elseworlds approach, and that's what, there's a selling point to that. That when especially when the writers get lazy and whatnot, and they just fall to templates and I've already seen this, you're not trying, that sort of thing. And then of course in the recent era where they tried to cover it up with identity politics and the like, really hurt the superhero comics. Well, the main two for the most part overall. So anyway, here you have Absolute Batman leading the charge. Absolute Superman, of the three, the main ones, was Absolute Batman, Absolute Superman, Absolute Wonder Woman. Absolute Superman had the best art. They had a guest artist on Wonder Woman who was really good, but he wasn't the main artist. The main artist on Wonder Woman, not a big fan of it, but it kind of fits with the sort of nod to mythology and whatnot as the approach to Wonder Woman is there. But Wonder Woman has the best narrative, the best interesting story. It is at least interesting. Superman has the best art. The story sucks. Now, granted, I only lasted 2 issues, so I'll have to go back in and see how that's turning out. But I'm dubious. Anywho, here I am catching up with Absolute Batman number 7. So, speaking of guest artists, you get a guest artist on this one. Rather weird, but it's a weird character study, almost a character study, of the Absolute version of Mr. Freeze. And it's all very creepy, and so it's rather fitting. So anyway, we get this backstory, and due for time, I'm not going to go through and read it like I tend to do. It's to the land of ice we go. Exciting, eh? Not much farther now, And that's Dad bringing his son. This is in the past, and he says, "Hey, this will be great." He says the kid wants to go play in the jungle and stuff, and he says, "There's even more to see inside the glacier. I know it's hard to believe, but the ice on that mountain holds more life inside it than this whole rainforest. You won't believe your eyes, okay, Victor? Victor? Uh-oh, what's going on with his eyes? Victor, what's wrong?" So he's got some horrible disease. He's bleeding out of his eyes and everything. This leads his father to try to find a way to treat him. This involves cryogenics, but there's a terrible price to pay. So he had to freeze him till they could find a treatment for his ailment, which they did. But, well, So anyway, Absolute Zero is given the title for this story, parts 1 and 2. And zero being obviously for the temperature, but also a nod to Mr. Freeze's original name, which was Sub-Zero. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, it cuts to Bruce and his friends. Oh, look, the question mark. Gee, I wonder who that could be. You know, it is what it is. It's what they've done. So they're at Crime Alley, and one of their friends has died. So they're doing a memorial for him, and they talk about. The friend's name is Matches Malone. Of course, in the actual Batman world, Matches Malone is an alias for Bruce Wayne to pose as a criminal so that he can spy on the underworld element, you know. Here, he's an individual. He's a totally different guy, and his name is Matches Malone. Why is he called Matches? Well, they had this game they played where they flicked the matches, and the winner gets to pick somebody to take a dare. But with Matches Malone, he was such a thrill seeker or what have you. He always picked himself, even though he won the matches game every time he was up for it. His life was foolhardy and dangerous. And, now he is no more. Bruce Wayne, everything's done in silhouette and all this stuff. Bruce Wayne shows up for this memorial, and it reveals he was the last one with him when he died. And this leads him into an investigation of the circumstances to eventually encounter Mr. Freeze. This story of going back and forth continues into the next issue, but mainly the crew is feeling like Bruce isn't one of them anymore. He doesn't involve them. They know he's Batman, but they feel like he hasn't involved them enough. But he did involve Matches, and it ended up getting him killed, so on and so forth. But now he's looking to find out what happened to him and avenge him. Will it work? Will he be able to do it? Well, what do you think? So the cover here is giving you an idea of the new take on Mr. Freeze. So very different, but he's already, and this is an interesting thing about the take on this for the most part, because this Batman is absolutely huge. I don't know if they said he's 8 feet, but he's definitely probably a little over 7 feet. And he's this big hulking dude, and he's just been smashing all these guys around. And there's been some challenges, of course, but not really getting his ass handed to him. Here, almost immediately, he's taken down by Mr. Freeze. Mr. Freeze, as a result of the terrible experiment he suffered, has granted him, basically, for all intents and purposes, superpowers. And he's going to put Bruce Wayne in the tank and freeze him. But it turns out the cryogenics, well, it'll preserve you. So if you're dying of some disease and there might be a cure later, they can use it on you. The problem is you're completely aware that you're frozen all that time, and it's utterly painful. It's basically a frozen hell. And so there you go. So he's got the best of Bruce Wayne. Oh, no, he's going to put him through a transition. No, it's just the straps. But he's doing the experiment, so you can already see the process beginning. Oh, it turns your eyes blue. Well, that's something. But then you get all bloodshot, you know. And that's going. But, oh, look at the results. You end up looking like him, I guess. But that's the deal. And he's already paralyzed him. He can barely move. And, oh, will he get out of it? Well, he's Batman, so. What's this? Can Batman escape? And, well, I don't want to spoil it, but, hey, there's a next issue, and it turns out this story is already over because now the Mr. Freeze thing, it gives you more detail on the overall mystery and what's going on. They have this facility that's on an island off the coast of Gotham, and it's called Arc M. Get it? Instead of Arkham, they've got Arc M. And there's all kinds of weird experiments going on there, and Mr. Freeze is a part of that. So Batman is getting on the nerves of those in power and whatnot. So they got to turn to someone to take care of it. So now we're going to meet the absolute version of Bane. And there he is. And this is rather mild in comparison to how ridiculous this version of Bane can get. But that's keeping with the craziness of Absolute Batman. And so it starts off in this fictional Middle Eastern land, or well, I guess it's a neutral ground for these two leaders that are at war. One represents Kondak, the other one Korak, which is sort of the DC Comics fictional, Middle Eastern countries, so you don't have to use actual Iran and Iraq or whatever. And so they've come to a deal. They've decided to make peace. And they're going to do a peace treaty. And then, oh, my God, there's blood on the floor. What's going on? And here comes Bane. And he's been hired by some people who want the war to continue because, hey, there's a lot of money to be made in war. So, someone figured that out. So he makes one of them say, hey, you guys got to pick which one of you dies so the war can continue, and we'll set it up that you had to kill him because he attacked you in this supposed negotiation thing and all that to reignite the war. And the guy is like, you're crazy. You think we're going to go through this? Why, Omar lost his sons to this war. This is bigger than, I'll do it. So, and so Bane, So now this Omar, he has to keep the war going if he knows what's good for him. And so as a result, after that, Bane's like, well, my work's done here. And then he gets a call and they want him to go to Gotham City. Gee, I wonder why. Yes, he has to take care of Batman. And here we go. Just how big can Bane get? Well, you see, that's his face. And he does demonstrate that the chemicals that's pumping into his body can do this to him. So, abomination. Yeah, absolute. So it's another one where, yes, Batman gets his ass handed to him yet again. And he's being taught a lesson. They don't want him messing around. But, of course, he's Batman, so he'll figure it out. He beat Mr. Freeze. Oh, I let it go. But, obviously, he's in this issue to fight Bane, so, obviously, he survived Mr. Freeze. So he'll figure out how to deal with Bane. But, boy, it's going to hurt, But, crime fighting's tough. It sure is. So it's an interesting, fun romp. I just find it kind of silly, but I get entertainment out of it. So good enough. It's similar to when Scott Snyder was doing metal and dark metal. I forget the whole thing, but it was the metal series. And that was so over the top. It was just stupid, but it was so stupid. It was funny. And it was fun. So I guess kind of the same thing here in its own way. There's a lot of almost horror elements and creepiness about it, especially with Mr. Freeze, and a bit more serious than the metal stories in a lot of ways, but so over the top. It's just nuts, But anyway, there you go. Absolute Batman. I'll keep an eye on it and see how it goes, and then I'll tell you what I think. Meanwhile, unfortunately, I'm going to take a moment to make note of the passing of Jim Shooter, who is one of the giants in comic books and certainly Marvel Comics. He's best known. He was the editor-in-chief during the 80s, and a big reason why I became obsessed with comic books, even though I liked them. I liked the superhero stories and that sort of thing. But I only had like a handful of comics early on, and I mostly knew superheroes from Saturday morning cartoons and the like. But his Secret Wars, which and the other element was Spider-Man getting a new costume, the black suit, which went on to be Venom and all of that. But his Secret Wars really drew me in, and then that was it. I was hooked. But sadly, he recently passed away at 73. So Fandom Pulse has a decent write-up here. And Here we go. Shooter stands as one of the most influential figures in comic book history, with a career that began remarkably early, to say the least, and spans decades of industry leadership, starting his professional writing career at DC Comics at just 13 years old. Shooter sold stories that appeared in Action Comics and Adventure Comics beginning in July 1966. He wrote extensively for the Legion of Superheroes during what many critics consider the team's most iconic era. It was his run where Pharaoh Lad was killed off. That was his doing, I believe. Yeah, I think so. And, and he was really young at the time of doing this, so made quite the stamp on it. But it's kind of like the boyhood dream, he's a teenage boy. He writes into DC, and they're like, hey, this kid really knows stuff. He's pretty good. Let's give him a shot. Boy, it worked out. His work at DC spanned titles such as Superman, Superboy, World's Finest, and Captain Action, continuing until 1970, establishing him as a prodigious talent who could craft compelling superhero narratives from an extraordinarily young age. Shooter is best known for his tenure as Marvel Comics editor-in-chief, where he transformed the company into the dominant force it remains today. He created the groundbreaking Secret Wars crossover event in the early 80s, which became a bestseller and sold more copies than any other comic in the previous 25 years, essentially inventing the modern mega crossover format that would become a staple of the industry. To diminishing results, but that's because they weren't as good as Jim Shooter. Beyond Marvel, Shooter co-founded and served as editor-in-chief of Valiant Comics from 1991 to 1992, creating the Valiant universe and many of its original characters, and later launched additional publishing ventures including Defiant and Broadway Comics. Shooter had been in poor health in recent months, as he announced on his Facebook page, that he would be canceling events due to health concerns back in June, and unfortunately, it was very serious, and he passed away. But yeah, Secret Wars, that began just to sell the toys. There was this, I'm already forgetting the toy company, but there was this line of action figures. They wanted to do it, and they said, hey, can you write up some narrative to go with it? And so Jim Shooter said, yeah, all right. I think he was actually trying to get someone to do it, but he ended up, all right, I'll just do it. And it's almost like an afterthought or something, but man, did he craft a really cool narrative with Secret Wars. And I think they did a marketing search of, what do we call this anyway? And they came up with, for young boys, the words wars are popular and secret. Something like that. And that's all right. So, but it's a cool story and it spawned a sequel that he did also, Secret Wars 2. And it ultimately became this interesting take on godhood and omniscience and power and whatnot. And that was actually quite fascinating. For the original Secret Wars, it's probably the quintessential Doctor Doom story. I mean, really, what Doctor Doom achieves in Secret Wars, it's kind of like, I don't see him trying to go on anymore. I don't know how he would ever overcome losing what he gains. Spoiler out of that. But still, highly recommend Secret Wars and its sequel. It was a fun ride. And, of course, they're going to do the movie. And before he passed away, Jim Shooter did say in an interview that they contacted him. I mean, I guess supposedly for the royalty situation and the license. So he says, oh, so you're making a movie? And they said, well, we can't comment on that. He says, okay, you're making a movie. So, odds are, especially when they've been doing all this multiverse shenanigans, there was no multiverse shenanigans in the original, but the later Secret Wars that they produced, what was it, in the aughts, I forget. I mean, it was the Hickman Secret Wars, which that's what that is, a multiverse story. And so they'll probably combine the two in some form or fashion. Probably, though, will lean more to the recent one rather than the original. But anyway, that's just really one example. The way he ran the company, and a lot of people were irritated because he ran it with a heavy hand. But more times than not, his arguments on the industry and how it should function, I think, are borne out to be true. And ideas and leadership like his would probably, well, with no doubt, was desperately needed in the recent years, but it was not to be. There's a lot to learn from Jim Shooter, but I'm not sure many in the industry are listening. But nevertheless, his legacy stands tall in the industry, almost as tall as he was. I think he was he was a tall dude, as I understand. But we lost another great one. It's unfortunate, but he does leave quite the legacy, and certainly credit him with getting me very, very serious about comic books overall as a result of Secret Wars. So rest in peace, Jim Shooter.